Dear Bramblings, it's your Uncle Luke here. I hope you guys are having a lovely day. Oh my gosh, guys, though, I am so excited to be bringing this conversation to you. Today on the podcast, I have a very good friend of mine. His name is Hunter Allen, and he is a comic book artist, video game designer, and just overall great, fun-loving person. This conversation, however, we are going to be talking about having the courage to start over. And my God, did this conversation become something super inspiring, and I'm so excited to bring it to you. Like, this conversation is funny, inspiring, nerdy. We talk about video games a little bit and anime characters, and we also talk about safe spaces and what does failure actually mean, and why are we so inclined to feel as though we're not good enough when someone else critiques us. Oh, I can't wait for you to listen to this conversation. My trauma is going to be leaking out from the incident, and this is another example of where it does in this conversation. Towards the end of the conversation, I actually take one of Hunter's art pieces and I give him my honest interpretation of it, and that's kind of where my trauma leaks out there. With that being said, I just want to make sure that everyone is listening to their own boundaries and limits when listening to the interpretation there, and take breaks if you need to, and listen to yourself. Yeah, thank you so much. And without further ado, let's just dive into the conversation. Hello. How's it going, Hunter?
It's going fantastic. How about you, Luke?
I'm good. Yeah. I just wanted to say, thank you for coming on the podcast and for being here. And I'm so excited to have you. And I usually like to start this off with all of the podcasts, but would you be down to tell me a little bit about your story?
Absolutely. First off, thank you for having me on. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be your guest on your podcast, and especially for the first time I've ever on a podcast. So thanks for bringing that to light. Yeah, my name is Hunter Allen. I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, but I've been living in Vancouver for about 7.5 years now.
Really, 7 years? Wow.
I know.
Has it been treating you okay?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I feel that, Vancouver itself has been a little difficult to live in these days with, just how expensive everything is. And, it's my need for a better life. And there is so much the city has to offer. Try to make it through regardless. But yeah, I love it. I'm actually due to renew my PR right now, which I probably should be working on. But yeah, I'll get around to it. That's my master procrastinator at work. But
I understand that.
I'm hoping I can keep on staying here. Yeah, I've been here about 7.5 years now. Moved here for a relationship that ultimately didn't work out in the end, but instead of packing up and going back home, I thought I'll stay here and make the best of what the city has to offer. I am an artist. Worked on a few comics, mostly line work and coloring. And I've even worked on a little video game called Dad to the Bone. Maybe one of these days it'll come to the light and be able to play it for free. You actually have played it.
I
If
have.
we're being candid, yeah, you were there at our little launch party for that, which is awesome. Thanks for
Yeah,
coming to that. Uh,
absolutely.
and now I'm gearing up to work on some solo projects. I've got a little one-shot story in the works that I'm very, very, very excited about. It's been in my
Oh,
mind for a very long time, and I finally decided, you know what? This is the year. This is where it's going to start happening. I finally feel confident and ready to do it. So,
mm. Where does your relationship with art kind of begin in your life? Like,
oh, I've always been an artist. I remember before I was ever even in grade school, I was always drawing. I'm actually hard of hearing. I wear hearing aids in both ears and actually spent the first several years of my life without hearing aids. So
mm,
couldn't hear at all. So I think a lot of times that was my way of communicating, is being able to just kind of like draw things out. And
mm.
I can't hear anything around me, so I'll make some pretty pictures.
Wow.
But my relationship with art has definitely been a little on and off, I would say. Is a
Mhm.
big component of why we're speaking today. It's interesting. Like I have this like for a long time I had this like love hate thing with art.
Mm.
I remember in grade school, like seventh grade, I had this teacher and I always try to think outside the box. I remember this one time I turned something in and she was like, no, this is wrong. This is not how you do it. And
Mm.
little old me was like, okay, well, I'm not doing art school anymore. And then I didn't take art in high school or anything. And really wish I had spent a lot of my time in my 20s, despite loving art and creating it, always thinking I wasn't quite good enough, as good as the pros, especially when I'm looking around me. I've been in art classes where I'll look around me and see these people who have just been ingrained in it so
Mhm.
hard in their life and they're so much better. And I've kind of let that low self-confidence beat me down a bit. And the words in my mind say, no, you can't do this, right?
Mm.
And it wasn't really until even the last few years, honestly, being here, meeting some incredible people and surrounding myself with people who had the same interests and passions that I do. And now I've been able to learn and grow and create and finally at 31 years old feel ready to tackle the art world and make my own, put my stamp on it, right?
Yeah,
So
wow. That's amazing. I totally relate to the feeling of comparison and oh, it can be so paralyzing. And no, I was actually just wondering, like, curious old me, like, what were the kind of the first things you would draw?
Pokemon,
Nice.
Mario characters, Nintendo. Growing up as a Nintendo fanboy, I was always drawing like the characters that I love. Not just Nintendo. I remember drawing like Sonic the Hedgehog characters all the time. Being the
Yeah.
little nerd that I was, obsessed with Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And I would, be in class, not paying attention to the teacher, drawing out my Sonic and Shadow fan art.
Mm.
Fan art in general is probably where it all started, for sure.
Oh, I love that. Wow. Oh, I see you drinking something. What's in your cup there? This is one of my questions that I've been asking people these days.
I'm drinking a delicious lime bubbly. I'm showing it to you on the screen, even though the viewers won't see it.
I
Uh,
freaking love the lime bubblies. I've been going kind of nuts for them. I love fizzy water.
Soda water bubbly is amazing. I drink it pretty much every single day. As I used to be so addicted to sodas, and then I finally got that sweet, sweet, crisp, spicy water feel from bubbly. This is not a brand deal. This is not sponsored. Bubbly is not paying me to say these things. It is just it is just that good. It's delicious.
It is. I agree. Something that I actually did one day is I got one of those like little Mio squirty things. I got the
Yeah.
lemon one and I put it into a lime bubbly and it tasted like
Mm.
Sprite.
That sounds delicious. I'll
It
have to
was
try that.
exactly like Sprite. It was like, what is this? There's no sugar in the Sprite. I loved it. Yeah, I've got right now a cup of coffee because I am addicted to coffee.
Me too.
So recently, in my apartment building, on my floor, there is a fireplace that no one uses. It's never on. and people kind of just put things on it that they don't really want.
What?
And it kind of becomes this like communal like table of one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Oh, okay.
And someone put an espresso machine on it.
Ooh,
and I had
wow.
one of those moments where I was like walking past it and I saw it at the corner of my eyes, and then I like paused and I took a breath, and then I looked back at it, and then like I walked backwards and then I faced it and I was like, do I take this? No. And then I keep walking to the elevator and then I push the button and then I'm like, but wait, you kind of always wanted one. Maybe you should. No, I don't have the time for that. No, I shouldn't. But
it's free.
When else am I going to get this chance? Right? Like, what if it's not there when I'm back? I'm like, crap. And your apartment's just right there, Luke. You can do this. And I'm like, okay. So I ignore the elevator as it opens and I turn around, I grab it, I unlock my apartment and I put it in my room, lock the door, and then I'm on my way. And I have been loving it. I have been loving it. I currently ground up some coffee that's not normally for espresso machines because I was like, screw it. It's just a grind. Who cares about the type? And yeah, I've just been exploring the lands of Central America through my espresso machine.
How worldly of you.
I know. I'm such a coffee nerd. I'm so addicted to coffee, but the lazy side of me very rarely makes coffee at home. See, what you don't see, you've seen me drinking this bubbly, but what the real secret is, on the farther side of my desk, I've got a delicious Java Monster as well, just in case I start feeling a little sleepy. Very nice.
But what can I say? 7-Eleven has those little buy the two for $6, whatever, and I work right next to one. And despite my inner monologue saying you don't need 300 milligram triple shot Java Monsters today, and I'm like,
yes, I do.
Nah, yeah, I need it. And throw a couple taquitos in there as well,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good. Yeah. Well, Hunter, this sounds, why do I keep thinking about it in this way? But I'm like, we are gathered here today.
Are we getting married today?
No.
You didn't tell me? Oh my God.
Why my brain just goes there? But
is that why you gave me the ring at the bone lunch party?
No.
I thought that seemed kind of weird.
No. That's good though. No, we're coming here together to talk about, you see, it still doesn't sound right, but let's just move past it. We're here to talk about essentially having the courage to start again.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I approached you to come onto the podcast, and part of my process is I like the guest to choose what they want to talk about. You're talking a lot about how in your story, you very much had this narrative of not feeling like you're good enough, but then overcoming it in some way. So I don't know, in my head, when I picture narratives like that, because I relate to it so deeply, is in my head, I see it as like a movie that I play in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I envision my goals, growing up as a competitive Irish dancer. I would always envision myself at the awards ceremonies at competitions. Funny enough, most of the time they were in Nashville, Tennessee. And
oh, really?
Yes, you know that big hotel there, the Gaylord Opryland Hotel.
Absolutely.
That place I have thoughts and memories, and anyways, I would always envision myself, I'm in Nashville, I'm on the stage, it's the award ceremonies, and just the feelings of what it would be like to get top 5, and then going through the whole experience of and in 5th place we have not me, and in 4th place we have not me, and then eventually going up to 2nd place, and the moment 2nd place is announced, we know who the winner is. And
right.
Just imagining myself becoming the winner, and the tears in my eyes, the sash on my shoulder, the trophy in my hands, the medal around my neck, and everyone cheering my name, and how often I never got there.
Well, never too late.
It might be too late for that dream, but I think maybe that dream could maybe look like something else in some other way. But yeah, I'm just wondering, can you relate to that?
Oh, yeah. All the time. Almost to a detriment. moving to Vancouver, one of the things that I picked up was walking everywhere because back home I would have to drive everywhere. And then coming here, I was forced to get into like public transit and walking. And one of the things I love to do most now is walking. Even if I can take the train, I'll walk home. And what I do is I'll put on some music and just think and walk. And a lot of times I'll spend that time thinking about aspects of my life, past, present, and future. Yeah, like I have so many dreams that, it's easy to lose count, right? And then I can say like one of them is like I've always wanted to really get into animation and come up with that great like animated comedy or horror concept, two of my favorite genres, and eventually get something on Netflix or whatever, or a movie. And I always think about that feeling of being around all the people that I love, my friends and family, and all of us getting to watch this thing that I created for the first time. And yeah, that's probably something that a feeling I'm always chasing. I did that Dad to the Bone video game event. That was something I was almost trying to bring to life in a way, right? Like bring everybody over that I love and get away from the experiences, things that I've been working on. And it's a big motivator for sure. But then a lot of times I think about the things in the past, whether it be mistakes or missed opportunities, and I always think about what I would do differently. Always. And it's like, what would I do if I were wake up and suddenly I'm in high school again, surrounded by all these people that I don't talk to anymore because I was a kind of a butthead. I would go back and I would do things differently, do better in school, focus more on my true passions in life and not so much on the things that are now looking back were not that important, right? I do this all the time. Like I envision myself as what it'd be like if I finally were working out and getting fit and healthy, and how different things would be if that were the case. Or, I think I just take every scenario possible in my mind and always think, what if? And it's almost comforting in a way, right? Like to kind of play that movie in your head. Even when I'm laying in bed, falling asleep, I fall asleep to thoughts of scenarios playing out in my head.
Yeah.
It's comforting, but it can also be like a detriment because especially when it comes to like a future thing, I almost set an expectation to that sort of thing, whether it's like a conversation that I have to have with somebody later that might not be a very comfortable conversation, right? And you're playing the script over and over and over in your head and exactly how you want the conversation to go. And you're like, all right, I'm ready. And then in the moment you're sitting there and you're like, so you're great. Yeah.
Oh, it hurts.
It very rarely ever goes the way that you think that it's gonna go. But
yeah,
it doesn't mean things can't still have like the same end result if that's what you're looking for. It's a lot of times those dreams are that first step into making it happen.
Yeah. Wow. No, I love that you were talking about expectations, because I feel like for me, that movie in my head created these like stealth expectations in a sense where I didn't really realize that I was expecting my life to kind of turn out like that, playing these movies in my head over and over and over again. And I think for me, it got really hard to express this movie to other people. I realized how vulnerable it really feels to tell people your hopes and dreams, because I feel as though people kind of get resentful when they hear about other people's hopes and dreams. And I think resentful is the right word simply because it kind of comes from this place of envy.
Right.
I'm not mad that you're telling me your hopes and dreams. I'm mad that I'm not living mine. So I'm going to then say something that maybe cuts you down a little bit, so then you don't have to live your hopes and dreams just like I'm not living mine. That was a narrative that would often happen to me. And I eventually just stopped telling people about the movie or the comic strip that would play in my head. And what would happen is I would create these expectations over and over and over again, and I would have no one to help me manage them. There's no one around to really tell me like, Luke, that's maybe a little too much. Like,
Right.
maybe think about the first step of the ladder, not the 58th. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
because I didn't really have anyone to healthily manage my expectations, I feel like I was left disappointed far too often in my Irish dance career, at least. I don't know. Do you relate to that? Is there anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think something that a lot of people don't quite realize is that when it comes to the expectation, it's not just us alone who set those expectations for ourselves. I think so many of us grew up around, like family and teachers and whatnot that look at you like you're going to go on to do these great things. You're going to be amazing. You're going to change the world. And while that in the moment feels so positive and encouraging, it can kind of sting a bit once you're 10 years later and you look back on that and you're like, wow, that didn't happen for me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then it creates a disappointment within yourself because you didn't follow not only the expectations for yourself, but the expectations of other people. The hard thing to come to terms with, if I'm giving like an art piece to someone, I'm showing someone, a lot of times I don't like showing art to like friends or family outside of like social media and stuff because I'm always thinking, well, they're gonna just say this is great and it's wonderful, it's amazing, but they're gonna say that anyway, regardless of what you put out. So it does really help a lot to have people that are there to encourage you and help you grow and realize your dreams, but also know how to do it in a way that isn't going to end up being a detriment. Like a big way that helped me get back into art was meeting a good friend of mine, Joel. You met him at the Dad to Bone event. He approached me to work on Almost Home, the comic series that I worked on, the trilogy that just wrapped up. And, I remember at first he was like, yeah, we're really looking for someone that could like ink it and then like maybe do some coloring. And I remember my mind being like, sounds great, would be amazing, but I don't think I can do it. But he was encouraging and was like, you can do it. You can. And they brought me on. And while it was definitely a learning process and it took a lot of time, a lot of trial and error, one thing I really appreciate about him and the rest of the crew is that whenever I would show them what I'm doing, they would know how to properly critique it and give feedback that would help me grow rather than cut me down. And then, but also know how to compliment in a way that isn't just complimenting me at face value. Basically just saying like, I like it for the sake of it because you're my friend and I love you and I don't want you to feel sad, right? It's a weird balance.
Yeah, I really love what you're bringing up is that sometimes the story that we tell ourselves is not from us.
Yeah.
I love that you're mentioning that because I think that's so true that sometimes the words that we say to ourselves about ourselves actually come from our parents or teachers or peers in some way. And it's strangely enough, I think it's like their opinion of you thrust upon you. And it's almost like you have to carry the weight of that expectation as well. And it starts morphing itself into your idea of how you think you should live your life. I just really love that you brought that up because I think it's really true. And I think that's something that we need to have some awareness about is like, is the story that I'm telling myself my story, or is that my mom's, or is that my dad's, or is that my brothers or sisters or teachers or coaches?
Yeah. So that's actually another point I really wanted to bring up when thinking to talk about on this podcast is the other side of that expectation, because I just talked about like the positive side in a way of expectations where they're like, you can do it. You can do anything you set your mind to, which, to a degree, that's true. But then there's the other side of the expectations where you almost feel pressure to become this person that you don't want to be. I'm very, very much of the opinion that when you're 17, 18 years old, you should not be forced to know what you want to do with your life right then and there and be ready to sign up for college and put yourself in $100,000 of debt and all of these things that your still developing mind is not ready to take on yet. But society and our parents and people make it not feel it quite that easy sometimes. So I do have a degree in graphic design. I did go to school for that. And that's a whole other story, which boils down to me looking at those around me and being like, I'm not good enough. So I just kind of shut down. So I technically have a degree, but I wouldn't say I quite earned it. But then afterwards, I started to go to university for marketing. In the end, I really only started to do that because on one side, I would have a teacher that'd be like, you'd be really good at this. You should do that. And then I would have parents and grandparents tell me, you got to go to college and you have to get a good job and You need to go to this university that isn't just a community college that you went to, et cetera, et cetera. And so I started going and signed up for the loans and saw the debt racking up and was going to class, just being in the classroom. I just remember like, this is not what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of had to muster up the courage by the end of that semester to just say, I don't want to keep doing this. This isn't going to work. You know, if I'm just going to go to college for the sake of it and go into debt for the sake of it, then I'm just hurting myself in the long run just to appease people around me. So I think so many people go through that. So many people, like it's...
And so it sounds like what you're saying is that you kind of chose what you like.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of that story of like, you need to go to marketing, you need to go to school because I'm assuming, because I've had this said to me, is like, art's nice, but it's something to fall back on.
Right.
It seems as though you're kind of choosing it instead.
Mm-hmm.
That's the story that maybe you're finally telling yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just really making me think about the relationship between boundaries and authenticity.
Right.
And I was looking through one of my books here called The Gifts of Imperfection. It's great. I recommend it. But they define authenticity as the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are.
I 100,000,000% agree with that.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And so what sort of action did you have to take to really choose yourself and kind of block out those stories that weren't yours?
Well, I would say a big part of it was me moving to basically another country from one side of the continent to the other, quite
Literally
honestly.
putting a border between you. Yeah.
So while I moved here for one reason, I decided to stay for another reason, which is myself. It's funny because I actually moved here for somebody and I ended up staying to become my own person. And I don't think I quite realized that until really several years into me actually living here. Even me moving here was not a popular decision back home. My family did not want me to move.
Mm-hmm.
My friends did not want me to move. And I did it anyway, though technically I did it for the wrong reasons.
Mm.
And in the end, it did cost me some friendships, which have now since rekindled. But, you know, it's tough, right? Like, as the years have gone on and the more people that I meet, I've just spent so much of my life just truly disliking who I am. Like, I deal with a lot of intense depression and anxiety and insecurity to this day. Like, I hate to say that I'm coming on here preaching, but, I'm really not perfect either, Nobody is. We have our highs and lows, but I've just had to really come to terms to what I didn't like about myself and how to fix that and the steps that I could take to just start liking myself a little bit more. Instead of worrying about other people, whether or not they like me or dislike me. And the more that I've started to face that fear of people potentially not liking me, just saying, doesn't matter, I'm going to be who I am. And if they don't like that, that's fine. And I can actually say with confidence that for the most part, it's worked. Like on the family side of things, I love my family very dearly. And I have pretty good relationships with them, but I don't know if they realize it, but they definitely put like maybe an unintended pressure on me to be a certain person and to fit in with a certain mold. And I was always scared that if I don't be this person and if I don't do what they say, then I'm going to lose them. I'm not going to have a family. And I think somewhere along the line, I just decided, screw it.
Yeah.
I'm going to live for myself and do what makes me happy. And now, like, when I go home, I continue to be that person and they still love me. I'm still Hunter and they still treat me with love and care and kindness and are excited to have me around and just happy to have me in their lives. And then all that fear is washed away because I just said, screw it. I'm going to do what makes me happy. And I think when people start to see what you're like when you're living authentically, they will be like, okay, I see now. I get it. And I'm just happy to see you thrive and succeed, And I mean, because of that, I try to continue to apply that sort of thing in other areas of my life. With like art, I get nervous. I get scared. I get worried. And I was like, no, I'm going to sit down. I'm just going to do it. And 9 times out of 10, I get surprised because I'll show people what I have, and they're like, "Oh, wow, this is great. This is amazing. You did fantastic." And I'm like, so I just gotta stop being so hard on myself. And same thing with work, being at a job, the coworking and stuff, or school or wherever. Like I was felt like I had trouble fitting in because I get so nervous and quiet. And my most recent job, I went in was like, I'm gonna be who I want to be. I'm just gonna pretend like I'm with friends that I've already known for years. And my first couple of days, I just started cracking jokes and being silly and just trying to have a good time, and it worked really well in my favor. And now I really like my job, and I really like everyone I work with. I've worked so many jobs where I just feel alone because I'm just like, oh, nobody really knows who I am because I'm too timid and scared to get out that bubble. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Totally. I was kind of just picking up a little bit about the story of like people telling you what they think you should be. And I noticed you're saying words like fitting in with the new crowds, and also talking a little bit about like fear of starting projects. It kind of sounds like there's an unsafe feeling sometimes when you're in that state, if that makes any sense. Like you're not safe to be authentically you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder, when you feel that energy, that flow, that creative process, like everything's just kind of working out, do you find that your most creative and your most inspired moments are when you're feeling as though you are safe to be authentically you?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like? What is the safe space for Hunter? The safe haven, if you will.
For me, like I'm someone who likes to, if I'm drawing, I will try to create this sort of like vibe that I'm going for in the art. So obviously like music is a big factor. Really what it is, for example, I go between like a lot of different genres and stuff when I'm drawing. So like I'm really interested in horror, I'm really interested in comedy, all of that. So if I'm drawing something kind of horror related, I'll put on a dark synth like Rave from Hell music because it kind of like gets the energy going and the blood pumping. And I kind of do the same thing in the genre. Like I'll start off kind of like with some kind of chill music. It's similar to Lo-Fi Girl in a way, but I'll go on like YouTube playlists, listen to like synthwave and chill step and whatnot, video game music. I continue to listen to that sort of thing, and then to like get that kind of aha moment, and I'm like it all comes together because I'm very hard on myself when I'm doing work. So if things are not going my way right off the bat, I have to create like as comfortable as a space for myself that I'm willing to remain in until everything kind of clicks. And then when things do kind of click, I will put something on that's like almost more upbeat and will be like high energy. Yeah, it's like almost like I took a drug, right? Because I'm just like I figured it out, and now it's just like focused and going, and then all it's almost like a dam breaks and all the ideas kind of start flowing through. And that's really just my favorite state to be in, is when the ideas finally start to work out. You can see it on paper or a tablet or wherever you're creating your art on, and then it all just starts to flow through. And I'm on Discord messaging like the people that I'm working with, collaborators, and like, what about this would be amazing, this would be amazing, and it all starts to kind of come together. Getting past that nervous stage, that dream stage of the thing hasn't been started yet, and it's like I don't know where this is going to go. And then we get closer and closer to that finished product.
Well, something that I'm noticing you're saying is that like that nervous stage that you're talking about is so imperative to get to that inspired stage. It's almost like it's part of the contract to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, just in general, do you think those who are trying to get to that inspired state and they don't feel as though they have the safety to feel that nervous state, do you think that success comes quickly?
I think the problem is that everyone wants that success to come quickly. And it's hard to jump, especially if, let's say, it's a newfound passion or just something that you're, exploring, you're figuring out for the first time in general. Everyone wants to be a natural at something. I think a lot of people think, if I'm meant to do this, then I'll be a natural at it. It'll just flow, right? And that isn't always the case. You still have to learn the process of whatever it is you are doing, whatever it is you're trying to experience. Very, very few people in the world are true, genuine naturals and are experts right off the bat. And you kind of have to sit down and accept the fact that you're not going to be that. And that isn't meant to be discouraging. It's meant to say, if you are passionate enough about the subject or the hobby or whatever it is that you're trying to want to do, if you're passionate about it and if you're willing to put in the work to do it, it can happen. And eventually it might come off like you are a natural, right? I consider myself a self-taught artist in a lot of ways because, as I mentioned earlier, I took one bad critique from a teacher in the 7th grade and I just let that stick for so long. And I refused to go into classrooms and learn because I was afraid of that sort of thing happening again because I'm so hard on myself. It's almost kind of like, how people will like post something online and you could receive like all of these positive comments about it, but then you get that one negative comment and then you're just looking at it and you're like, why did that person say this? What is wrong? Why am I not good enough? I suck, blah, 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 I'm not perfect. And that's just kind of where it all starts, this spiral. So I let so much of that dictate my growth as an artist for so long. And it wasn't until really after the pandemic that I started taking it more seriously. But so much of what I know now is self-taught outside of like collaborators' feedback. And it's just because I could probably know so much more now than I would if I just gone to the classes, if I just taken the time to accept that feedback, right?
Yeah, wow.
It is what it is.
There's a teacher at Harvard. Her name is Dr. Sarah Lewis, and she studies a lot about like success and mastery and the creative process. And she really talks about the importance of embryonic safe spaces. And she uses the word embryonic quite intentionally because a safe space should feel as though you're back in the womb, like you're so safe and protected and comfortable. And we need that space to make the mistakes, to fail, to go through that nervous state, as you're saying. And when we don't have those embryonic safe spaces, and we are welcomed into an environment in which we don't know what other people are going to say or how they're going to react or how people are going to give us feedback, it can be incredibly damaging. And yeah, I'm also getting flashes to this word that I love. It's called chrysalism. And chrysalism comes from the word chrysalis, which is part of the life cycle of the butterfly. It's like the cocoon. And chrysalis actually comes from the Greek word chrysos, which means gold. And scientists use the term chrysalis in that context because they would typically have this like golden iridescence to them. And there's a part of me that also feels as though there's like a poetic reason why they chose the word chrysalis, because in the life cycle of a butterfly, it's like the caterpillar is spinning itself into that chrysalis and creating a safe space for itself so it can change. And it can go through so much pain and whatever the process of metamorphosis is like. But it's in this safe little cocoon. And then finally, when it's time, it emerges with its golden achievement of its wings.
Yeah.
And for me, I just think if there's anyone out there who wants to try to be more creative and wants to try to be more anything, wants to change, you got to start assessing your safe spaces, right? And the places where you feel as though you can be authentically you. And you have the right to fail.
Right.
Which now leads me into another question, which is, what does failure mean to you?
I think a lot of people consider failure to be not completing the task, or not succeeding in general, like especially right off the bat. To me, failure is not being willing to recognize that you can still succeed as long as you get back up and keep trying. Failure to me can be a good thing, even if it hurts in the moment. It helps us to learn and grow, move forward, whatever helps those wings grow, right? Because many times working through the pain of that failure just makes the joy of success that much sweeter.
Mm.
People have highs and lows in life all the time. I don't think anyone is rarely is anyone ever on a complete true path of success with no obstacles, right? We are all striving for a success of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody quite has it in the bag 100% of the time. To me, if you try something and then you don't succeed, but then if you just give up right then and there and you're saying, I'm not good enough, throw it in the trash, never look back again, that's where I think you may have failed. That's not to say though that you can't, try something new and decide this isn't for me. All time failure can be focusing on the wrong things and putting so much stock into something you're not actually passionate about, and then going on to live a life of unhappiness because you put so much into this one thing that brings you no joy. So even though in some ways you succeeded, you've still failed. I think failure is a very gray area.
Mm.
It's never quite black and white. Can't do it all. A lot of times to succeed in something, you gotta fail on something else. So
Yeah.
I think it's up to you to decide what's gonna be your failure, what's gonna be your success. And if you fail on something, that's okay.
Yeah.
You can either keep trucking or move on to the next thing. Just keep trying. I think a lot of failure is not taking the steps to become the person that you personally want to be. Not living for yourself, living for others. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a lot of different meanings, I guess. Like it really has a lot of different meanings to the word.
No, totally. It sounds stormy.
Yeah.
A little bit, I kind of get images in my head of trying to like walk outside in a storm, in a thunderstorm or something, and you're getting pelted by rain, and it's just that feeling of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And that's where, in my opinion, like storms can be just so sucky and so dangerous sometimes too, when you're out in the middle of it and you don't know where up or down, left or right is, and everything's just so disorienting. And I mean, that's kind of where what the term chrysalism actually means, is when you're inside safely watching a thunderstorm. That's the feeling you get. It's chrysalism. And I think, yeah, failure in a sense is that feeling of like walking out in the storm. And it sounds like what you're saying, like a success is that feeling you maybe get when you're inside.
Yeah.
Safe and sound. And I like that. And it also kind of reminds me of another thing that Dr. Sarah Lewis was talking about, where she really likes to use the word blankness instead of failure, because I think failure societally has this shame that's really like glued to the whole concept of it.
Right.
And it sounds like what you're saying is that failure could be so many things and so many opportunities. However, when we hear failure, we think, I'm a failure, right? We associate ourselves with the feeling. And if we were to even like break down the linguistics of I am a failure, I talk about linguistics far too much in this podcast, and language, it's just wild. But anyways, yeah, if we break down the linguistics of I am a failure, you're essentially just saying like 100% of me is only one thing. And that's not true.
No.
You're so many other things, right? And you're not just one thing. So she likes to use the word blankness because it kind of creates a new slate for the whole concept of what failure is supposed to be. And in a sense, it's kind of like you're wiping clean the slate. You're starting over, you're trying again, and you now have a blank canvas, a blank sheet. And I think you were just talking about this a little bit as well, but that blank sheet is terrifying.
It is. Yeah, I would say finding myself in a new country, new city, especially after a quote unquote failed relationship, I had to stand there and be like, well, now I'm in this place where I know nothing. I know nobody. Customs are different. Everything's different. Everyone I know and love are all miles and miles and miles away, but they're also in a place where I wasn't happy being myself. So now it's like, well, shit, I got to look around and I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this. Because it really did feel like having that new environment. It was terrifying. I think it was really the first time I was ever truly independent because, back home I had family and everything, and I would run into a little trouble and I could just go over to my mom's house or grandparents or dad's or whatever and get some of that comfort there. But here I was really forced to face the music and work my own problems and work on myself. And I'm not going to say that I'm 100% there yet, but I know that I am way farther than I would be if I had just given up and just said, well, that's over. I'm going to go home and wallow.
You know what's so funny is what you just said there. My first thought was Ash Ketchum from Pokemon.
Right.
I just totally imagined his journey in the Pokemon anime, and it's just funny because his whole pursuit, his like main goal, was to become a Pokemon master.
Yep.
Right? You and I both watched the show probably from the beginning. Like,
oh yeah.
How long did it take him to finally become like a world champion? Has it been like 25 years?
Yes.
I mean, he's still technically 10, roughly, so...
I mean, if you don't want to get the whole semantics of being the Orange Islands winner and all that, yes, though, you're right. Like, it really took years and years and years of being a 10-year-old going...
I mean, it's a cartoon. It's not actual reality.
Yeah,
but...
of course. No, I'm just being a butt. But no, that's 100%. It's funny. Like, I'm gonna lightly spoil an answer to one of your rapid fire questions, but another character I've had in mind would probably be Luffy from One Piece. Mm-hmm. I've been really obsessed with this show lately, and I've been watching so much of it. And one thing I really love about the main character, Luffy, is just the fact that he is so determined to accomplish this goal of his to become the king of the pirates. Mm-hmm. And he's willing to essentially do whatever it takes to do that. But he, at the same time, if he finds himself in like an impossible situation where he will potentially die, he always thinks to himself, it's like, well, you know what, if I die here, at least I died fighting for my dreams and my goals, being exactly who I wanted to be. And I will have no regrets about that. Wow. That's one thing about anime is sometimes these characters have such long, drawn-out inner monologues, and Luffy is just so straight to the point. He's like, nope, this is what I want to do. This is how it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, at least I died fighting, trying to make it happen.
Wow.
And I think that's a valuable thing to take away from it, Yeah.
I'm
not saying go kill yourself and trying to do this thing. Please don't do that,
Yeah. But it sounds like what you just said was almost like the definition of mastery, according to Dr. Sarah Lewis.
Yeah.
It's so wild that you say that. Like, she describes mastery as the continued reach for a goal, whereas success is more of like the landing of, if that makes any sense. It's like these punctuated moments in your life where you can look back and you're like, oh, I got that award. That was a success. Mm-hmm. I got that thing. That was a success. But It's almost as if mastery is this continued reach towards a goal that's so close, but just far enough that you have to keep reaching. And it's just funny because that's Luffy's superpower, is that he's able to reach really far. Yep. Right? But at the exact same time, like going back to Ash Ketchum, his whole pursuit was Pokemon mastery. And the amount of times he lost and the amount of times he won didn't really matter, because throughout his 25 years of being on television, he was constantly reaching for that goal.
Yeah.
Right? Until he finally, he got it. But for me, that's what the difference is between success and mastery, is that mastery is this choice to choose a goal that you want to dedicate your life to, that you're going to just keep reaching towards. Mm-hmm. And success is just the little happy, joyful moments along the way. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
Yeah. Like I guess for a good example of that would be, say, like these comics that I've got the 3 issues that I've worked on hanging on my wall right now above my computer, because it's a reminder of the successes I've had so far. It's easy for me to be so hard on myself and be like, I have not done nearly enough with my life. I'm 31 years old. I'm watching people 10 years younger than me be more successful than I am. And it's a difficult thing to swallow. But then I take a look at these comics and I was like, no, I have these quite literally physical representations of success right here, because as someone who has always been so scared to take that jump, has always thought, I'm not good enough. And I've always let that low self-confidence take over
Yeah.
On top of also being a really bad procrastinator, finally having these finished projects in my hand, the feeling that I get from like flipping through the pages and seeing the work that I've done, it means the world to me. I'll be honest, like I haven't even made any money from these comments, but I still feel so blessed and successful to just have these things, these works of art that I've worked on with my friends who built me up and encouraged me to take that jump. And mastery, of course, in the end, my goal would be to have my own, animated TV show or my own comic series or, there's just so many things I would love to do. And even if I don't become rich, even if I don't become super famous and I spend 40 hours a week working in a kitchen like I currently do, I still get to go home and continue working and doing the things that I love. And every finished project just makes me feel more and more successful.
I love that. Ah, yeah, it sounds like you've really chosen the path of becoming the master artist or a master animator of some sort, and it's awesome. Like, no amount of successes really matter, no amount of failures really matter. So long as you're on your pursuit of mastery, everything is right.
Because, I mean, how many Pokemon Leagues has Ash lost in the end? Most people would give up and say, well, that's it for me. I didn't win.
Exactly.
I'm not the best, but Ash just said, you know what? Nope, on to the next one.
Right? Blankness again. Like every region that he goes to, he intentionally leaves all his Pokemon back with Professor Oak, except for Pikachu, and he starts anew. And I think just having Ash as this character in my life, as this role model who is unintentionally teaching me the importance of choosing a path, and that every single fumble, every single trip, and every single joyful, successful moment is all part of the journey. And there's no shame in any of it.
Absolutely. I mean, light spoiler alert, in the end, in his final episodes, he wins and also utilizes, like Pokemon from his past, right?
Yeah.
He brings people in, like, even though they were ultimately some way part of his failure, he was still able to take these aspects and like bring them all together for the ultimate success. With all of his friends and family and everybody watching, and you get that euphoric feeling of I did it, and I think that's a feeling that we're all chasing.
Yeah.
I think so many of us want to think success can only happen in our 20s. And that is like, if you haven't found success by the time you're 26, 27, then you're screwed. And I know so many people, the older I get, the more younger people that I meet. And that shocking amount of these people, especially once they start getting closer to being 30, that fear of turning 30 is always there. And it's always like, well, I haven't done nearly enough with my 20s that I wanted to. Now I'm going to my 30s and I'm just going to be old and decrepit and my life is over.
It's just begun.
I always tell them, yeah, it's truly just begun. There's such a weird, I think it is kind of weird, this weird stigma of your 30s being the beginning of the end when it's not. Why would you go through 20 years of growing up just to only have 10 years of success and then it's over, right? Like life just continues going regardless of how your age, and the possibilities are always going to be there, no matter what age you are. There's so many, actors and actresses that didn't get into acting until they were in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and then they hit it big.
Yeah. Wow.
There are people who have lived twice the lifetimes that I've lived and didn't find success, I'm using air quotes, whatever, until that long, right? And I'm not saying it's always going to be that long. Everybody's success comes at different times in their lives. And in the end, it's really what you make of it. But yeah, it's never too late to start, and it's never too late to start over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Hunter, I was wondering, this is something that I've been doing with every artist that I interview on the podcast, but I like to stalk their Instagram.
Oh, no.
And I like to choose a piece that really sticks out to me, and I like to write out my feelings about a piece. Would that be okay if I shared that with you?
Absolutely. I'm very curious.
Okay, so the piece I chose was called Oakhaven. Do you know which one that is?
I do.
Yeah. So
It's on my wall right now, actually.
is it? So yeah, this piece really stands out to me because it reminds me of the treehouse that I used to have growing up. It reminds me of the safe haven I had in the backyard that I could run away to when things felt just a little too intense. In this piece, however, the dark, harsh lines and the jagged edges really make me feel as though the Oakhaven creature has really dark intentions. It makes my skin crawl almost when I think about how there are beings out there that could take advantage of the innocent to lure a child in with a trap with the promise of sweet apples and safety. I then start to grieve the loss of this child. Your description of the Oak Haven states that some remain hopeful, saying that there are an endless supplies of apples inside, enough to keep the child happy and full for the remainder of its life, to the point where it never wants to leave. When I read that, I start hustling with the uncertainty of whether or not the child is alive, and it leaves me feeling vulnerable and helpless. I'm then reminded of my current relationship with hope. When my friend died recently, about 4 months ago, I remember this moment when I was giving him CPR where he gurgled out some air. And I remember in that moment, I was just thinking like, oh my God, is he alive? Like maybe he's breathing. And then when I found out that he actually died, it was hope that had actually cut me the deepest. And it was in that moment that I started to understand why in Greek mythology, hope is the last monster inside of Pandora's box. The Oakhaven creature, for me, kind of symbolizes that part of my childhood that died that day too. As much as I want to continue to nurture my inner child and to continue to assume the best in people, I can't deny how painful it was to see my childhood friend die. All I have left of him is my memories, and yeah, they're as sweet as apples, but at what cost?
Wow, I quite honestly speechless.
Thank you.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you. That really touches me a lot. It's funny that you chose that piece because that was that was actually the piece that I did when I finished it, where I had that aha moment in life,
Mm,
and it was like, I can do this, and I
mm,
can create these wonderful works of art. So that piece means quite a lot to me.
mm,
And just, I guess, just kind of hear you speak about it, especially in relations to dealing with the loss of your friend, which I'm very, I know we've talked about this in the past, and still I'm very sorry that that happened. It's just that the loss that I can't imagine.
mm. Thank
Um,
you. Yeah. It's been, I've been mentioning it to pretty much every podcast, it seems, right now, but I think it's very reflective of just like what I'm going through and maybe
mhm.
a symbol of my mastery as well, that I've chosen this goal and I'm going to keep going. And, I am still human and I am still going through a lot of pain, and this pain is just a part of the path. In a
Mhm.
sense, maybe I think it's also fair to just let the people that I'm talking to know where I'm at as well. And just if I have some sort of interpretation, it's probably just because that's what I'm going through. But at the same time, like, yeah, the Oakhaven creature just, he's creepy and a lot to look at sometimes. But what he kind of represents to me is, I guess, a symbol of my grief.
I mean, I find it, on one hand, I want to feel like, ecstatic because I've never really had someone come to me about, my art in that way. And I'm meaning that seeing it in a way that I personally as an artist, like, never saw it, right? On the other hand, it's hard, like it's hard to feel happy about when it can represent something so painful, you know.
Mm.
Um,
I think there's a
I
lot of honor in that. I think is what I'm trying to say, is that it's so important to honor the pain too. It's so
yeah.
important to honor the parts that feel like you're veering off the main road. And I think, to me, Like, I know the artist in me, if I were to put out a piece of work, I would want people to feel joyful and happy and inspired. But to put out a piece of work that maybe is a symbol of grief and pain to another person might be kind of hard to swallow, but I want it to kind of maybe come across as that, like, Oak Haven Creature helps me honor every bit of that moment as integral, and I don't want to change any bit of it, if that makes any sense. And it's a part of my story now. And I think that's arguably even more important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like so it's interesting, like when you say like if you were to put out art, just like you want your audience to feel happy, and in a way, going back to kind of like the mastery thing is one thing I've always in the back of my mind have wanted my art to be about. If I ever really get the chance to share my art with the world on a grander scale, it would be being able to convey how I feel, like how I've felt, how my mind works, how explaining to those, like, I feel like I've gone through so much of my life just not getting it. There are so many things that it seems that the rest of the world understands so naturally that confuses me and scares me. And it's just like, why don't I understand these things so naturally like everyone else around me does? And that on top of the fact that I want to have a way to convey the emotions that I'm feeling, what goes on in my mind, and hope someone out there can relate to that and it makes them feel better as a result. A dream of mine is we talked about earlier how you asked me if I ever have like a movie or a comic playing in my head, and it's like that's quite literally something that I want to do, is that I want to one day is be able to create like a comic or an animation or something that kind of is a little bit about myself and about how I deal with like depression and anxiety and relationships with others and the mistakes that I've made and the successes that I've earned, and all under like a layer of like comedy, right? Because I like to make people laugh too, so it's like I want to make you laugh and I want to make you cry, and that's a big thing. I think to me, like the mastery would be for someone to see my art and the work that I do and then just come up to me and say, I get it.
Yeah.
I get exactly what you're saying. I get what you're going through.
Yeah.
And telling me that it helped them in return.
Well, it helps me. So I want to thank you for that.
So in a form, in some way, that I guess I have hit a level of mastery that I did not think that I would, especially today. So thank you for that. It does mean a lot to me, hearing you talk about that piece, even though it was, it related to something that is truly genuinely awful. It's good to know that it hopefully helped you in a sense, I guess.
I think it does. I think it's, I think it is just what it is, and I'm very grateful. That's one thing I've been saying a lot in my counseling right now, is that I'm just so grateful for my grief, because there is nothing that melts the concrete in which we buried our problems deep underneath better than grief. And I just feel like this whole chapter in my life has really opened up my thirst for loving life, loving myself, and recognizing that for me, connecting with others is one of the meanings of life, and what others do for me and what others mean to me, it's so important. So
absolutely.
Sappiness aside, I just would you be down to do a quick rapid fire to like tie it up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, Hunter.
Luke.
What does vulnerability mean to you?
Vulnerability to me is having the courage to honestly and genuinely communicate how you feel to others. It's easy to bottle things up because you're worried you'll look stupid or you'll drive somebody away. But you would be surprised at how many people can relate to the exact emotions and thoughts that you're having.
Mm-hmm.
So opening yourself up can is having the courage to open up, let others in.
Mm. Wow, good answer.
I'll
What's your favorite movie?
give you a couple.
Okay.
Comedy wise, Best in Show. It's a mockumentary about a dog show.
Okay.
It's my go-to movie to show people when it's my turn to pick, and it is yet to disappoint. It is so
Nice.
funny, so well done. Always puts a smile on my face. But horror-wise, as a big horror fan, I'm gonna say the movie Rec. It's REC, as in like recording. That's what we're doing right now,
Oh.
recording. It's a found footage, quote unquote, zombie movie. It
Mm.
was one of the first horror movies that I really watched and enjoyed, and it's quite really what got me into the horror genre in general. After
Mm.
spending so many years being scared of it, and it holds up so well today. Nowadays I can watch a horror movie not bat an eye, but this one still gives me that tense feeling, and that's what I love about it. Right?
Gosh, yeah, horror movies are hard for me sometimes. I have to like overanalyze everything in order for me to be able to sit through it.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, my imagination will take over and I'll start thinking it's real, and then my sleep is gone for like 3 months. I gotta be careful with it. But what's your favorite TV show? Is it One Piece right now, or?
No, it's not One Piece.
Okay.
That's a great show. My favorite show I'm going to say is King of the Hill.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I fall asleep to it constantly. It reminds me of home in the best way. Always so funny, so good. It's one of those shows that I think a lot of people think they don't give it a chance because they think it's going to be like some conservative garbage, but it's really not that. I'm not going to get into a whole King of the Hill spiel on, but I highly recommend it to anybody out there that's listening. It's a fantastic show.
That's fair. Yeah, my favorite throwback to like look on when it comes to King of the Hill is like Hank is trying to like grease up a hinge, so he's using double.
Yes,
WD-40.
I was literally just going to use that reference. Yes,
and he can't take off the lid, so he takes a smaller WD-40 to take off the lid. It's so good.
It's one of my favorite moments of all time. I'm constantly just chuckling in my head about that. Thank you.
It pops into my head and it just lives there for a little bit rent free.
Oh, so good.
What's your favorite meal?
I'm gonna be a piece of trash, and I'm gonna go with a Crunchwrap Supreme from Taco Bell combo with a soft taco, a cheesy gordita crunch, and an ice cold Baja Blast.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
But my non-trash option would probably be a chicken donair with all the works.
I get that often, actually.
Donair, yeah.
I love donairs. There's a place just really close to where I live, and yeah.
So good.
Okay, so if you could have a dinner with 3 people, either dead, alive, or fictional, who would they be, and why?
So I'm going to do one of each.
Okay.
Dead, Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh my gosh.
Love SpongeBob. I think a lot of people look on that show as just being something stupid and wacky, but especially in the beginning, near the beginning of the show, like it was really just a phenomenal work of animation and comedy. Like it really bridged the gap of being able to make you laugh no matter what age you are. And just the way that so much of it is done just always makes me smile. So that would be my dead option. Okay. My live option would be Junji Ito. He's a horror manga artist. He's responsible for work such as Uzumaki and Tomi.
Okay.
Another person that has helped drive my desire to work in like art and comics and whatnot. He has such a good way of drawing things out that are just so like unsettling and creepy, and it just makes your skin crawl. But the funny thing is that as a person, he's actually a very sweet, soft-spoken, kind-hearted man who just loves his cats.
Aww.
And funny enough, my favorite book of his is a book about him, his wife, and their 2 cats. And it's drawn really creepily, even though it's like a comedy. You know.
Okay. Huh.
And then fictional.
Yeah.
Would you like to take a guess at my fictional answer?
Is it Luffy?
It may or may not be Luffy.
Oh, okay.
As of right now, in this moment of time of the podcast we're recording, with fictional character, I'm going to go with Luffy specifically because what we talked about, his ability to stay headstrong in the face of adversity, despite whatever obstacle stands in his way, and is willing to keep moving forward, whether or not it takes 10 episodes or 1,000 episodes or 2,000 episodes. He's going to be the king of the pirates.
Wow. Yeah.
So I could use a little bit of that determination in my life. For 1,000 episodes of my life.
Yeah. If I could take like another, maybe an honorable mention for you, I feel like if it's okay to say, maybe
Sure.
Sora would be an honorable mention.
That's a good one. I do love me some Kingdom Hearts. Did you say that because I have a Keyblade behind me right now?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have a giant.
Me.
Totally. I mean, he's got that air of positivity and determination and doing whatever it takes to be there for his friends, you know. And that's always something I want to be. I always want to try to be there for people any way that I can, even if it doesn't always come off that way up front. You know, I do care, and I'm a very sympathetic feeling person. You know, if someone else feels bad, then I feel bad, and I want to make people feel good. So I totally, yeah, that was a pretty good answer too. I'll take Sora.
Now, do you have a favorite Pokemon? Or actually, you could also say, what would be your preferred team of 6?
Okay, so I love so many Pokemon, so many. Pokemon friends for life.
This.
Yeah, we'll have to shout out the original Haunter. Just because, not of course, similar to my name. I've got a tattoo of it. Love the design. Okay. But I also remember playing Pokemon Red, and remember the first time running into a Haunter, and it was like kind of terrifying. And I was like, but no, I'm gonna catch this thing. And it's really the only Pokemon I think I have a specific memory of catching in like Pokemon Red. I didn't all blur together as like being a game. It just really stood out to me. So always loved it. But if I had a team of 6, I'm gonna go with mostly Ghost.
Okay.
I thought about it a bit. It would probably be Haunter, Chandelure,
nice,
Annihilate, Dragapult, Trevenant.
Yeah.
And then it's not a ghost Pokemon, but I have a huge soft spot for Beware.
Beware. Oh.
Yeah, I love Beware. You know, it'll hug you so tight you're gonna die. I'm gonna kill your friendship. Yeah. So yeah, I love that.
Are they a normal fighting type?
Yeah, normal fighting. So
then the normal type kind of protects the ghost weakness.
Yeah, have a little wild card in there.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like that. Dragapult's one of my favorite Pokemon of all time right now. I just love, like, it's a Dreepy, which is so cute. I love Dreepy. And then it evolves, and it just becomes a bigger Dreepy, but with another Dreepy on its head. And then Dragapult just becomes, like, a bigger Dreepy with 2 Dreepies.
It's like if Kangaskhan was a ghost type, and instead of fighting for the kid, she just took the kid out of her pocket and threw it at the opponent.
It's true. I agree.
And that it's so goofy. It's such a goofy concept. It's like, I'm going to hang back here, but y'all can go take care of this for me.
Yeah.
And just shoots little guys right on through.
Oh my gosh. I love it. So what is something you'd like to say to the next generation of humans growing up in the world?
I would like to tell the future kids of America and Canada and the world, it's okay to not fully understand who you are and who you're meant to be right away. It's okay to make mistakes and learn from them. It's okay to not be perfect all the time, and it's okay to need some extra time to find your footing.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Hunter. And I'm sad it's done. I want to just keep going, but
thank you for having me. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was really cool to do this. Yeah, I was very, very nervous coming into it for a minute. I was kind of like, I don't know what to even say. Like, I'm a very deer in headlights person when it comes to like broad questions, and
Mm-hmm.
but I had a great time. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
I'll do a little tiny little plug here.
Yes,
Uh,
please do it.
if you, like I said, I'm an artist, mostly digital, work in some comics, hopefully one day bigger comic animation. If you're interested in that sort of journey, or if you want to see the piece that we were discussing earlier, it's okay then. You
Mm-hmm.
can check out at Hauntera, it's Hauntera. So the word haunter with an A after
Yes.
on Instagram. And that is where you'll find a lot of what I've been working on past, present, and eventually future.
Amazing.
So that'll, yep.
I just had another quick thing to sign off, but I just realized, like, I think you're the second hard of hearing artist I've had on the show.
Oh, really?
That's just
Well,
wild.
I wanted to be the first. So you're going to have to release this episode first.
Oh.
Is that episode already leaked, isn't it?
It is. I'm sorry.
Okay, you'll have to delete that episode, release my episode, and then I'll let you go ahead and say, wow, you're the first hard of hearing person I've ever had on this podcast.
Yeah.
You can say it. I'll wait.
But I can't do that. How about this? Maybe one day we could have like a 3-way podcast.
Battle of the Deafs.
Oh my god.
The greatest battle you'll never hear.
Oh my gosh. I love it. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know. I'm just
that would be great.
This out. I don't know, but
that's okay. That would be cool though. I would love to do that. It's always cool to talk to other people that are hard of hearing and also artists. So yeah.
Hey, that might be a really interesting conversation. Who knows? My friends, there is my conversation with my friend Hunter Allen. I really do hope you enjoyed. I actually think this is probably one of my favorite conversations I've had in a really long time, and so I'm so excited to share it with you. I want to just say thank you to Hunter for opening up about your story and for teaching us and telling us how to have the courage to start again, and for having this really great conversation about your art and about all this nerdy stuff that we're both into. I really enjoyed it. Now, something that I do want to mention is that I actually don't have any social media for Hunter anymore. I know at the very end of the podcast, he was promoting his Instagram. However, Hunter has decided to cancel all of his Instagram for his mental health, which honestly, I think that's an incredibly wise idea. And if anyone wants to do something to better their own mental health, I actually deeply recommend maybe thinking about how much time you're spending on social media, how many things you're being subjected to that are actually affecting you, and maybe really just thinking about, is it that you don't care about what's going on in the world, or maybe you just care more about yourself, that you're willing to maybe take a step back from social media? I don't know, but I definitely recommend everyone to maybe take a page out of Hunter's notebook there and maybe just really start to assess your own relationship with social media. With that being said, I do believe that I'm going to be putting the Oak Haven creature picture on my Instagram, or on maybe I'll be posting some links to Hunter's website. I know he was trying to get that in the works, so keep your eyes open for any links to his work. And yeah, with that being said, Bramblings, I just want you to know that there is always time to start again, and that it can be so difficult to want to try to start again, but just know that when we really reach deep down into who we are, we will always find that courage to do so. Just know that I love you so much, and I'm thinking about you, and I want to hug you and kiss you and laugh with you, and yeah, I'm thinking about you. Anyways, guys, bye for now. The Dear Brambling Podcast is a podcast dedicated to my little bramblings, to the next generation of humans growing up in the world, as well as to anyone who might be looking for a little more guidance in their life. It is hosted by me, Luke Benoit. Editing and sound design are by Cedar Picture and Sound, MB Productions, and Hideout Productions. The music that you're listening to is called Curiosity, and it's composed by Matthew Grazier at Grazier Music. The logo was designed by Misaki at Hostess Misaki on Twitch TV. And if you'd like to follow me on any social media, you can do so on Twitch as well as on Instagram at Lucatronosaurus Rex. And to anyone who is listening to the podcast this far in, I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate it. I do, however, need to say that this podcast was brought to you for education and entertainment purposes and should not be used as a substitute for actual licensed coaching, counseling, or therapy. If you are experiencing some sort of pain in your life and you need some help, I definitely recommend shopping around for the right coach, counselor, or therapist that is right for you. With all that being said, I really do hope that you're doing something today to take care of yourself, and I do hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.